Hi everybody, Greg Seaman from bluesandrockguitar.com, and I want to talk to you today about the modes. Now, modes are, I've seen lots of videos, read lots of books, and I want to explain about how the modes work because I think that sometimes when I'm looking at books and videos, they make it way more complicated than it really needs to be. Now let's talk about, and also, what you want to do is get a copy of my book off of bluesandrockguitar.com. It's free. You can download it in a PDF form. And you need page 12 master scale forms. You need to look at that page. And that's what we're going to take a look at and talk about. Now, when we're looking at that page, the very first scale tone goes like this. You're starting off at the F note, and you play just the major scale. Now, what the major scale is 2 whole steps, a half step, 3 whole steps, and a half step. And all of the modes, now I'm talking about the basic modes, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. They all have those same whole steps and half steps in common. They're just not in the same places. But they all have 2 whole steps, a half step, 3 whole steps, and a half step. So there's 2 whole steps and 3 whole steps broken up by half steps. And that's exactly what the piano looks like. When you're looking at the keyboard of a piano, the 2 white keys together without the black key in between, that is either E and F or B and C. Those are natural half steps. So E and F and B and C are always a half step. And that's on the piano keyboard. That's the 2 white keys without the black key in between. All the other notes being whole steps. Now, some of this information might be kind of beginner. And I want to talk about this though because sometimes people might be fuzzy on some of these areas. For instance, the guitar is built on a half-step system. Every single fret is a half step. Open to first is a half step, first to second is a half step, and there's 12 half steps up to the 12th fret. At the 12th fret, the guitar starts over again. This is a miniature neck. 12th fret is the same as open. 13 is the same as 1. The dots are even in the same spot. The 15th fret dot and the 3rd fret dot on a Stratocaster. And most guitars have those same dots in the same spots. So keeping that in mind, the way that I teach people how to play the modes is by a root tone system. Being able to take a scale shape and move it to the proper root tone. And the first thing you have to do is know how to name all the notes off on the fretboard of the guitar, which is easy. It might sound complicated, and when you look at books, especially if they include all the sharps and flats, it looks really complicated, but it goes in alphabetical order. So it starts off with E on the 6th string. Okay, now what comes after E in the alphabet? F. E to F is that natural half step. Open to first is F. Then F to G is a whole step. G to A at 5th fret is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is that natural half step. C to D is a whole step. And D to E is a whole step. And that's an octave. You've got a complete cycle starting at E and ending at E, and that's called an octave. All right, so now the notes go, and that's going, the notes go up this way, and they also go across the neck this way in the same order. Now, that's the interesting thing about guitar is that you can play scales going up and you can play scales going across. Now, let me take a major scale. Let's talk about F again. Now, on any musical instrument, if you know how to make whole steps and half steps on it, you can play a major scale. I'm going to start here on F, and I'm going to go whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, so there's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. All right. Now it goes the same way across the neck this way. Whole, half, whole, half. And then it just starts over again. If you're looking at the master scale forms that are in my book on page 12, this is 1 again. It just continues on up. Now, when you're looking at all of the scale forms in my book, there's 5 of them. It's pretty common to divide up the neck into 5 shapes, and some books you'll see divide into 7 shapes. Either way is good. Remember, it's always going to be 2 whole steps and a half step and 3 whole steps and a half step. And if you sit and look at it and figure it out, you'll see it. You'll be going, oh my goodness, he's right. It's always 2 whole steps, half step, 3 whole steps, half step. Now, I have them divided into 5 sections. When you're looking at them, all 5 of them together are the complete neck of the guitar. The way the guitar players learn how to play lead guitar is by sectioning off or breaking it up into 5 different segments or 7 different segments. You'll see some books do that. Mine is broken up into 5 different segments. Now, the reason is that we can memorize, if you put them all on one neck, it can be confusing. If we chop it up into 5 segments, we can memorize the 5 segments. It makes it easier to learn how to play them. Now, the reason why, let me talk about how the guitar is tuned. The guitar is tuned to 4th intervals between the 6th and 5th string. And what I mean by a 4th, it just means like 4 letter names, 4 steps in a scale. This is the E string, this is the A string, right? So E, F, G, A, it's a 4th. A to D is a 4th. D to G is a 4th. G to B is a 3rd, okay? So G to B is a 3rd. B to E is back to a 4th. Now, the reason why guitars are tuned that way, and actually all stringed instruments that we play, like fretted or non-fretted, even violins, cellos, they are tuned to either 4ths or 5ths, and the reason is so that the human hand can reach the scale shapes, you know, in a comfortable manner where we can reach where we can play across the strings and play the scales and play those whole steps and half steps. And also being able to play the triads. We can play, you know, the basic chords and bar chords in a shape that fits the human hand. If we tune the guitar to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to play a G chord, you'd have to do some weird gyration to get all the notes on there, and it's not going to work. So that's why instruments are tuned to those intervals. Okay, now, the first scale shape in my book, when you look at it, that I have numbers in there. There's one on the top that has numbers and one right below it that has the fingering. It's numbers also, but it's the fingering suggestion. Many books that I have found have just dots, and you just have to figure out what finger to use. I actually suggest what fingers to use. There's a convention of fingering for the guitar, and I like to try to lead people in that direction so they kind of get used to the proper fingering. But with the scale shape, the first scale shape, it starts off, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. Those numbers just mean this is the first note of the scale, this is the second note of the scale, this is the third note of the scale, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. So that's all those numbers mean. This is an F note, a G note, an A note, a B flat note. See, it goes in alphabetical order. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, and so on. So that's what the numbers in there mean. Now those numbers are what we're going to use to find where the scale goes for playing in different modes. Now the first mode is called the Ionian mode. The Ionian mode is the mothership. It is called the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 2 whole steps, a half step, 3 whole steps, and a half step. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? That's the major scale. Now, when I want to play it in a key, in a different key, I have to make one, if I want to play an Ionian, land on the note of the key I'm playing in. So for instance, it's in F right now. Okay, so now the band or whoever you're playing along with has to do something for you. They've got to play in the key of F. So they're playing, you know, the chords of the key of F, and they're playing along like maybe the 1-4-5 chord. F, B flat, and C. They're playing those chords, and then you can play that scale over it, and you're in the proper key. Now, the interesting thing about lead guitar and talking about keys and chords too is that it really answers